The next day, Adachi once again asked me if I was up for some table tennis. She seemed slightly more enthusiastic than yesterday, and I pondered why that might be while setting up the table and the net. Having already done it once, we managed to get everything ready a little faster than the last time. Can I serve first? Sure. She readied the ball, orange this time, and served. It wasn't any normal shot, however. She shocked the racket sharply, as if cutting the underside of the ball, which made it spin and caused it to bounce back to her side after hitting the table in front of me. I was far too confused, more so by Adachi's exaggerated motions than the trajectory of the ball, to hit it back. Hmm. Adachi returned my look of suspicion with a wild, childish smile, the like of which was rarely seen on her face. It really left an impression. I looked up this online yesterday. I didn't have a racket though, so I practiced with a spoon. She spun the racket in her hand as she bragged, proud that the unveiling of her new technique had gone successfully. It was honestly more surprising to me that Adachi was this into ping pong, but as the chagrin I felt was strong, I decided to act like that didn't interest me. You're using a curveball against an amateur. That's low. It's your fault for having no ambition, Shimamura. Here comes another one. Adachi took another weird pose and began serving. She hit it a little too low this time, however, and the ball ended up flying backwards towards her direction instead. It hit the wall and bounced back. After having picked it up, Adachi scratched her forehead. Then, bouncing the ball on her racket, she explained. You see, I'm still only good enough to send 1 out of every 10 flying straight forward. So, you got worse after learning a new technique. Was I really going to win just by standing still? Well, as it turned out, yeah. Just like the previous one, her next attempt failed too, and the ball flew off in the distance, bouncing off the floor and the other tables. It ended up landing on my side of the net, and as such, I went to pick it up, even if it had ultimately been Adachi's fault. Just then, however, I heard a voice coming from downstairs. The shock I felt was comparable to a needle being stuck into my heart. My body came to a sudden halt, and the ball I had been chasing rolled away. Adachi reacted similarly. Someone was speaking. A girl. Adachi quickly circled around the table and walked over to where I was, and we took a peek down below together. If there was someone on the stage, they'd only need to look up and they'd see us. Well, the piercing sensation in my heart had already passed. I could still feel my skin tingle nervously. It seemed that we were having gym this period. Girls from our class had begun setting up to play volleyball. The reason why I realized this, that they were my classmates, was due to spotting the familiar faces of my friends. Hino and Agofuji, to be precise. They were currently carrying the net and its supports. We had only ever sat down and talked before, so it hadn't been that much of a shock even when someone did walk into the gym. As such, I had never taken the time to actually learn the class schedule. We sat there, crouched, our hands on our mouths. The ping pong ball still bounced slightly on the floor, and we waited nervously to see if anyone would react to its noise. Oh damn, my heart's pounding, Adachi whispered to me. It almost sounded like she was enjoying the thrill. Why are you getting a kick out of this? I laughed back, poking her with my elbow. What are we going to do if they walk up here? As I asked her this, Adachi, with her hand still on her mouth, laughed and turned her eyes upwards. Let's open the window and jump out. Huh? But this is the second floor. Won't we break our legs? I voiced my disapproval towards Adachi's proposal. Jumping out of any window was scary, but even more so this one, since I'd never taken a look at what was below it. Although, it kind of felt like I was taking what she was meant as a joke seriously. With a short and Adachi nodded. So you're saying you don't get enough calcium? How is that the conclusion you came to? Me getting angry might have just proven her point. Through the wall I leaned against, I could feel the chatter of my classmates. The teacher hadn't arrived yet, it seemed, and there was nothing to stop them from talking. Hino and Nagafuji had no clue where I went when I skipped class, and the thought of me being in the same building as them probably didn't even cross their minds. It was pretty funny to think about. Crouching there, hiding. It did feel like I was doing something wrong. Well, obviously I was, but sharing that wrongdoing with Adachi was kind of fun. Was I into it because she was with me? Or was I simply getting off on the feeling of doing something that I shouldn't? I knew right away, but decided to leave the question unanswered. At some point, the orange ping pong ball had rolled all the way to the end of the wall and come to a stop. Maybe I'll drink some milk during lunch today, so that I can jump down without breaking my legs, Adachi planned. The look on her face was simultaneously serious and non-serious. Of course, today didn't end up being the next time she had promised. His school came to an end that day, Adachi had, as was the norm, already left. She had told me before that her mom would yell at her if she came home early, so I figured she just loitered around town, killing time. Much like yesterday, I attended the afternoon classes, after which I dropped by a bookstore with Hino and Nagafuji. I normally wouldn't have gone with them as my home was in the opposite direction, but today there was something that I kind of wanted to check out. Well, not that I knew if they even had those sort of books, considering that I had never taken a look at that section before. Oh, they do. Standing before the shelf that contained sport books, I pulled out one that taught table tennis. If Adachi was going to look up stuff online, then I was going to use a book. I turned it around and took a look at the price tag. As I did, I couldn't help but gasp. That's expensive. I could see now why the internet got so popular. It was easy to look stuff up, and cheap. What are you looking at? Hina walked up to me and took a look at what I was holding. Though we had parted ways at the store's entrance, she had apparently seen me and come to check out what I was doing. You going to join the table tennis club, Shimamura? She asked, tilting her head. A pretty strange question, considering that our school didn't have one. Hino was my kind of plain-looking classmate. She had never dyed her hair, never shoplifted, and probably had never pulled the hair of a girl from another school. Well, not that I had done the latter too either. Her eyes were big and round, which lent a certain air of charm to her. Or maybe just simple-mindedness, as evidenced by her addition of a vocal sound effect into the swing of her air racket. She easily got caught in the moment, and I'm sure that if you flattered her, she'd even do a backflip or two for you. She also often lamented about how there was no people in school who shared her passion for her hobby, fishing. But it was a whole another story. So, why table tennis? Did you watch ping pong on TV or something? No, I wasn't influenced by anything. I just felt like it. It would have been too difficult to explain. Really wouldn't. Well, it really wouldn't have been. Still, the words wouldn't come out, and I ended up placing the book back on the shelf without so much as reading a single page of it. In the end, it seemed that I too would be relying on the internet. In my mind, I could already hear Adachi accusing me of copying her, and it kind of pissed me off. I was so angry, in fact, that it'd be worse if she didn't say it. Guys, don't leave me! The last member of our group toddled over, proclaiming her presence in a monotonish voice. Nagafuji had giant breasts and wore glasses. What more did I need to explain? Well, her hair was also really long, and when she wasn't in her school uniform, it often rested on her chest. It was straight, silky smooth, and felt good to the touch, matching her breast size. Her attitude, too, was all adult like. She was always calm and composed, but also a little dumb. What are you talking about? Hino gave her chest a slight smack, as if to say, don't worry about it. Okay, I won't, she replied, while giving Hino's head a tap in return. The two had been friends since middle school, or so I heard. I, on the other hand, had only gotten to know them after entering high school, and so, even if we were all friends, it felt like the two were slightly closer with each other than with me. Still, friendships aren't such that being close is always better. Get too close, and you might be met with opposition, and you'll realize that you weren't ever that good of a friends to begin with. What's your excuse for such casual sexual harassment? You always worry about your boobs. I thought I'd help you ease up. Hina wasn't at all ashamed. Rather, I'd never seen her act that way. Did she maybe have a strong sense of what was right? Or was that the wrong way to describe it? You do? I asked, looking downwards, almost like she was a little embarrassed. Nagafuji nodded slightly. Well, they are big and boys are always staring at them. Of course I worry. She crossed her arms, as if to hide her chest. Of course, she wasn't able to hide it at all. All the boys in the classroom imagined themselves grouping your boobs 10 times a lesson, I think. Wow, that's gross. Nagafuji looked visibly grossed out as I said this. That probably wasn't all they imagined. But since I didn't want to start talking about those sort of things in public, I decided to leave it there. Taking a glance at the table tennis book I had put back into the shelf, I sighed. It's the price you pay, Ino said, and gave her chest a tap, in the same way that you tap someone on the shoulder. Whoops, got them mixed up. Ugh! Nagafuji smacked her head before she could finish her sentence, and she ended up biting her tongue. The two continued their back and forth, making all sorts of noises. I slipped away quietly, so as to not be grouped with them.